This is my Pfaff 335H3. It's a dedicated binder. What makes this machine unique when it comes to binding? This is a purpose-built binding machine. It's a cylinder arm. Commonly when you're putting binding on, you're putting it on a formed product. The cylinder arm lets you get odd shapes into the binder. This machine is set up with the needle positioning system. It's a 220 single phase. A lot of these industrial setups are 3-phase. A lot of people don't have 3-phase, but this is a single phase. So in order to run this particular setup, I need to have a 210 electrical circuit, and I also need air. This has an air operated foot lift on it. But the machine head itself could be set up without a thread positioner, without air. Those items are unique to this setup. Now, if I took this off the table or just removed all the air, removed that motor and put on a servo motor or something, I could operate this on a 110 circuit. But when I got it, it was all set up. I plugged it in and everything worked. A thread positioner is nice. It always stops with the needle up. Now, the distance in here is super critical. You have to make some fine adjustments, and you want this to be as close as you can get to the business end without any crashing. You can see that as it comes in here, it's a repeatable distance once you get it set up with the screwdriver. Now you might need to take an hour or two to get all set up. But once you get set up, you can swing that out of the way, and then when you bring it back, it's just going to clip right back in there. And so in that way you can reload your binder. You can see in here part of this binder there is a guide here, and that guide is going to be what your finished binding rides against. And you can see that guide extends up past this foot, and of course without touching it. I'll advance the machine so that you can see that as the machine advances the work, this binder moves in conjunction. So it moves to the back of the machine with the needle, and then as the needle comes forward, the binder moves forward also. And so you make a stitch and everything moves back. Now, as the needle moves forward, this binder is going to come back to the front of the machine, and that movement is when the binding is going to be pulled out of there. And so that movement helps deploy the binding out of the binder. So there's a certain amount of friction inside this binder. And so this movement that you see here helps. And so that oscillating motion is a feature of this setup to help and pull binding through a binder effectively. You can see there's a kind of a place here in the throat plate that is cut out. This machine has a series of throat plates that you can buy depending on what you're going to do with it. So not only do you need feet and feed dogs and throat plate that all kind of work together, and this throat plate is cut out in such a way that this binder can come in there and set down. So you'll see as it clips down, it moves down, and so there is that allows this binder to kind of nestle in there. And while it's in there, it gives it room to move back and forth. Notice this binder doesn't move up and down during the sewing of the binding. It just moves straight back and forth. And that's the motion of the feed dog too, which is different than most machines. So this machine is a triple feed. It has a feed dog, it has a foot and a needle. But that feed dog does not go down at any point. When I bought this machine, it had a different plate on it. You know, factories are notorious for grinding and shaping things and brazing. And so I just thought I'd get new parts. This was the swing plate that was on here when I bought it. Again, it's just all brazed up and stuff, and you know, I just wanted to start with new stuff, so I got, you know, this whole setup from Tennessee Attachment Company, and I've been happy. I just started over with everything. So you can see the throat plate has a cutout that's lower than the rest of it. And this cutout where my finger is down inside is where the binder comes and kind of lives while it's in operation. So that gives it, and in that way that binder can get right down in front of the needle and not be up above it. It can get down on its level. Then you can see that feed dog that only moves forward and backwards. It doesn't ever move up or down. In that way, it is somewhat unique. But if we move over just a bit, you might be able to see this pin here. And this pin is what drives the binder. So it's on the same arm that operates the feed dogs. And you can see it's going to the front and the back of the machine with each stitch. And so when I swing this binder into place, it's hooking onto that pin. And that's what causes this binder to move forward and back. This pin. There's another look at that pin from above. You can see the spring here is pushing down on this binder assembly. I just pull up. You can see it kind of moves around on that spring pretty easy. And then as I'm pushing it back in place, it'll snap down. And this spring is what holds it in place. And then when you want to take it off, you just pull it up just a little bit and it'll swing right off of it. So this is on a swing plate. There's a plate here which is held with screws. You can angle this binder a little better than just the two screws that hold this. Mainly with these two screws, you can move the binder towards or away from the needle. And with these, you can set the angle of the binder to the needle. And whenever you get a binder, you're going to have to take some time and get these set up. So the binder is custom made. And I got this one at Tennessee Attachment Company. And then there's maybe some sort of model number on here. 455A, made in the USA, 1.5 inches. So this 1.5 inches, that is the size of the material that I have to cut to use in this binder. So that is one of the first variables. Also, the binder, this is a right angle binder. There's all sorts of different binders and they're good for different things. So I thought, for me, that this would be best for the things that I do. I'm certainly no expert in binders. This one seemed to be the most versatile. This is a double fold binder. There are single fold binders, and probably the single folds are more popular than this style, which is the double fold. This one is a single fold. And so if I want to buy some ribbon, it just folds it one time over like that, and of course these edges are finished, so it doesn't need to double fold it. And that's going to be a lot quicker. You can see that this has some adjustment in there, and then this plate will just hook on in the same place that the one that's on here does. So where the spring is at goes right here. So the reason I chose a double fold is because I don't do high volume. If I did high volume, I would probably want to just buy a product that I could feed into my binder. And if you're doing that, you're basically talking about ribbon or webbing. And so with something like that that has an edge that won't fray, you don't need a double fold. You just single fold it. And it's going to be a lot faster. Me, I'm always trying to use some secondhand material or something I got at an auction or something. And so I'm going to be cutting my own binding for that reason, because it gives me the most options. These are pretty expensive because they're custom made. To me, they're expensive. If you are running a factory, you know, in the big scheme of things, they're worth the money that they cost. So I opted for the double fold to give myself more options on what I used as binding. This 1.5 inch, that's one parameter that goes into making a binder. There's the style of binder. I kind of talked about that a little bit. And then it's whatever comes out the other end. And what size will that be? That becomes another part of the overall build of your binder. So if you need this end to be a very specific size, then it might vary as to what you're going to cut. Or even if you're not cutting, if you're buying, you know, maybe you're not going to buy a 1 inch ribbon, maybe you're going to buy 3/4 inch ribbon. I don't know. It's all going to depend on what you decide. So there's a lot of variables when you go to get a binder. And that's why it's best to get a custom-made binder. I told Tennessee Attachment Company, you know, what I wanted to do. And then I sent them samples. I sent not only a sample of what I wanted to put through here, but I sent a sample of what it was going to be attaching through, what I'm going to run through the machine. And so I sent the thickest stuff that I thought I was going to use. I always have heavy canvas around, so I sent samples of heavy canvas. I've also found, luckily, that I can run much lighter materials through this same binder. I was using this lightweight shirting. You can see it's all frayed on the edges. Once that gets double folded over, that just gets entirely buried inside the binding. I can make longer strips by sewing them together, and these will go through this binder just fine. So when it comes to loading this, I just I cut an angle on my binding. So right here it's kind of open, and I just push that through. And then as it comes out here, you're going to just pull it like the machine's going to pull it. And it's going to kind of somewhat magically just fold it. You can see it's coming out folded. And your material is going to end up getting sewn in this part right here. If I open it up, you can see this kind of looks like what you might buy pre-folded that you know, kind of iron and then put on by hand. But see, it's double folded, and so now you end up with a finished edge on the outside and the inside of the binding. So this right here is what you're gonna just put under the foot. Back here, this just is kind of a way to get this lined up into the binder. If you have stuff on a roll, they make holders where you can hold the roll where it's in line and it'll unroll. Of course, mine looks like this, and so I just try to put it in a pile somewhere strategically. I kind of like to just get my binding in the machine, and I'll sew a little bit. And once I'm happy that it's going to perform the way I want, I'll get my work, and I've just put a couple of pieces of upholstery together here just to kind of play around with, and I don't even need to raise the foot. So just put your work you know, in this fold, and then make sure it goes under the foot, and just keep this pressed in there, clear into the very top of the fold, and that way you'll be good to go. This machine's got a low and a high, so I'm pretty happy with that, so I'm just gonna cruise now. Right here you can see this this seam going through, and I've got that seam towards me, so that's going to get buried inside. Right there's that seam. So that kind of goes off. It looks fine. The seam's on a bias. But anyway, there's your binding. Just looks like that. You know, that gives your seams a real professional look, and then of course it doesn't change anything on the other side. And this is just, like I say, some surety. So that's my Pfaff 335 H3. It's a dedicated binding machine. This machine has you know, pretty nice motor and thread positioner on it. It always stops with the needle up, so that helps. And then it has the air actuated foot. You can kind of hear there's a leak over there. I think that well, it just works anyway. So, and as you can see, I can use this as a regular sewing machine also.
Thanks a lot for watching my video. Please consider becoming a subscriber.